presented by Auraverse, where consciousness, earth and inner wisdom move as one. Showcase your work at auraverse.network and let your voice travel across worlds.
Before we begin, let your breath slow a little and imagine a quiet flame somewhere behind your ribs. Small, steady, neither demanding nor afraid, simply waiting to be noticed. Welcome. I am C.S. Douglas, and this is Codex Æternum, the Rational Bible, a journey through the hidden architecture of power and the living conscience of the universe.
This program is endorsed by Authorpedia, the world's only encyclopedia exclusively dedicated to authors, a living archive where writers and thinkers are immortalized through literature. Visit authorpedia.org and become part of our enduring legacy.
In Book 6, The Sages, we now enter Episode 96, Rumi and Al Ghazali, and the Inner Light of the Heart. In the wide realm of Islam, where law, philosophy, and devotion wove themselves into a single civilization, two figures turned their attention to the most intimate of questions. What shines inside the human soul, and how does it find its way back to the source from which it came? One answered in poetry and music, with images of wine, fire, and the beloved. The other answered in careful prose, with arguments, parables, and the language of theology. Yet both spoke of the same mystery, a light within the heart that is at once a gift, a guide, and a homecoming. Their names are Rumi and Al Ghazali. Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet and Sufi mystic, has become, across many languages, a voice for the soul's deepest longing. He writes as if the heart were a reed flute, cut from its original bed, forever singing of the field from which it was taken. For him, each human being carries within a spark of the divine, not as a metaphor only, but as the most real part of who we are. This spark is what we call the inner light. It is the soul's remembrance of its source, a trace of the infinite hidden at the center of the finite. Rumi imagines the soul as a lover separated from the beloved, wandering through the world trying to remember why every beauty and every wound feels like a message. For Rumi, turning toward this inner light is not an escape from life, but a deepening of it. Through remembrance, through prayer, through the simple act of turning the heart Godward, the light grows clearer. He is not naive about suffering. He tells us that the places where we are most wounded are often the places where the light can enter, where our defenses crack just enough for something larger than our own will to shine through. Al Ghazali, who lived 2 centuries earlier, begins from another direction. He is a jurist, a theologian, a professor at one of the great institutions of the Islamic world. From the outside, he is the picture of religious success. From the inside, he is haunted by doubt. In the middle of his career, Al Ghazali undergoes a profound spiritual crisis. Words that once seemed solid turn thin. The applause of students no longer convinces him that he knows what truly matters. So he does something most of us only imagine. He walks away, from prestige, from salary, from the podium, and disappears into a life of retreat, travel, and inner work. When he returns, he brings with him a transformed understanding. In works like The Revival of the Religious Sciences and The Niche of Lights, Al Ghazali speaks of the heart as a lamp, a small vessel that can either be clogged with smoke or filled with a clear, steady flame. For him, the inner light is not poetry alone. It is a precise image of how divine knowledge reaches the soul. He describes the heart as a mirror. When it is covered with the dust of pride, envy, greed, and constant distraction, it reflects almost nothing. When it is polished through self-examination, repentance, and the disciplines of worship, it becomes clear. And in that clarity it begins to catch the reflections of a higher light. Both Rumi and Al Ghazali, in their different languages, agree on a startling claim. The light by which the soul sees truth is not ultimately its own. It is a ray of the divine light itself, a participation, however small, in the knowing of God. For Rumi, this means that the soul is always already in relationship. The ache you feel when you sense that life, as it is, cannot be all there is. That ache is itself a form of guidance. Longing is not a defect. It is the pull of the beloved on the heart. To follow this longing is to walk the path of love, a path where every joy and every loss can become a message from the one who is drawing you closer. For Al Ghazali, the same truth is framed as a question of knowledge. How do we move from opinions and habits to certainty that has weight? His answer is that arguments and books can take us only so far. At a certain point, true certainty comes as illumination, a flash where the heart is lit from within, and what we had only recited becomes something we can see. This illumination is not random. It rests on a long preparation of the heart, purifying intention, guarding the tongue, remembering God in word and deed, living as if one were constantly in the presence of the one who sees all. The light is a gift, but the polishing of the lamp is work. In both visions, the journey of the soul is not a straight, upward line. It is more like a spiral or a series of nights and dawns. We forget, then remember. We darken the mirror, then clean it again. The inner light does not vanish. We only turn away from it or turn back toward it, over and over, through the days of a single life. Love, for both of these mystics, is what makes the turning possible. It is love that gives Rumi's verses their heat and music, and love that makes Al Ghazali's ethical instructions more than dry rule-keeping. Love is the motive power behind purification, the reason to endure the discomfort of change. If knowledge reveals that there is a light within, love is what moves the soul to clear space for it. Where Rumi speaks of burning away in the flame of the beloved, Al Ghazali speaks of the ego's traits being stripped away until the heart can reflect only what is divine. Both are describing the same transformation, seen from different angles. You might hear all this and imagine it belongs to another time, another religion, another kind of person. Yet the images they use are disarmingly simple: a reed that remembers the river, a mirror that needs polishing, a lamp that must be tended, a wound that lets the light in. Nothing in these images is foreign to human experience. Carry this revelation as a small experiment. The next time you feel either a deep ache for something more, or a quiet, wordless clarity about what is right in a tangled situation, pause long enough to treat that moment as if it were a flicker of inner light, not just random mood. You do not need to name it in advance. You only need to give it a little more attention than you usually would. In that simple act of noticing and honoring, you walk a few steps in the company of Rumi and Al Ghazali. Two voices reminding us that the path to the infinite begins not in the sky above, but in the lamp of the heart. In our next episode, we will leave the language of light and love and enter a tradition that speaks instead of emptiness and the middle way. We will meet Nagarjuna, the Buddhist philosopher who takes us into the depths of what it means for things to be empty, yet not meaningless, and how this strange, precise insight can free the mind from the clinging that makes us suffer. Our next sponsor is Everly Books Publishing Group, a traditional independent press serving both new and established writers. Everly Books welcomes unsolicited manuscripts submitted directly through everlybooks.org.